Well, politicians don't lie, do they? But if they do, are they and can they be held to account? That's something the Welsh Parliament is debating, with a new law being proposed to make it illegal for politicians to lie during elections. It's a somewhat drastic yet refreshing proposal, but could it work? Jennifer Nadel is an author and co-founder of Campassion in Politics, and she joins me now from London. Jennifer, good to have you with us today. Now, firstly, what can you tell us about this law that's being proposed in Wales? What does it propose, and how could it even work?
Well, this law would make it an offence for any candidate to tell factual lies during the campaign. We're not talking about matters of opinion. We're not talking about what I'll do when I gain power. We're talking about matters of fact. Because if you look at other areas of life, if you're selling a car, if you're a doctor, if you're in financial services, if you're a teacher, you cannot lie during the course of your employment. And there are criminal sanctions indeed for fraudulent misrepresentation. And yet we have politics where we should have exemplary behaviour leading from the bottom, and there's no accountability. And in the UK, we have had the Brexit referendum, which saw Britain leaving Europe, which was catastrophic for us economically and across all other measures. And that was a vote that involved a lot of factual misrepresentation and deception, and there was nothing that can be done. If we look at what's happening in America, we can see disinformation being espoused from the White House. So all democracies are on warning. We have a limited time to make sure we have the proper guardrails in place, because we have to preserve the truth about facts. We do it in other areas of life, and this measure is quite limited. It would only introduce it in relation to candidates, but it's a really important start.
Yeah, can it pass though? Because essentially we are seeing politicians who are going to vote for whether they can or cannot lie or make misleading comments and then suffering the consequences of it. Do you expect it to go any further?
Well, many people understandably have a very low impression of politicians, but there are many who have integrity. And the organisation that I lead, Campassion in Politics, has been working with members of the Welsh Parliament across party to gather support for this. And many of them feel very strongly about it. Most politicians are honest, and yet the waters they swim in are polluted by the lies of a few. And they know that if they want to retain voter engagement, if they want to retain trust in democracy, they have to do something tangible and visible to clean up politics. And so there is support. We've also got a similar measure that is now being brought forward in Westminster. And that too already has 31 members of the Westminster Parliament signed up to endorse the measure, and many more saying they'll vote for it if it gets a vote. So politicians don't want business to continue as usual. They realise that the old era of gentlemen's conventions, if there ever was such a halcyon time, is not going to work in this modern world, and that we need proper safeguards to protect the democratic space and restore voter trust.
Well, it's clearly not working from what we've seen across so many democracies in recent years. But as far as Wales is concerned, what's been the public reaction? Do people think it's enough that this law only covers election periods? Because beyond that, MPs do have protections such as parliamentary privilege.
Well, the Welsh Government hasn't covered itself in glory. 2 years ago, it made a commitment to legislate so that members of the Senate serving politicians as well as candidates would be covered. It hasn't quite managed to deliver that, but it is seeking to deliver the measure that will target candidates. And that's a start, because some of the most terrible lies happen when people are seeking election. And we've found widespread public support. We've polled people in Wales, we've polled people nationally, and there is roughly 72 to 73% voter support for it. So we know that the public want it, that they can't lie in the course of their employment and don't want politicians to lie in the course of theirs.
Yes, and do you think with the legislation as it stands and as it's being proposed in the Welsh Parliament, that it would stop the problem of politicians lying during elections? And do you think this is something that democracies around the world, including ours in Australia, might be looking at very closely?
I hope so. I mean, our hope is that it will be a template for other parliaments to adopt. We've all got limited time. The writing is on the wall for democracy and the rise of the far right and what some unscrupulous politicians are willing to do, aided by the big social media platforms and foreign states. So yes, we hope that what's happening in Wales will become a template for other democracies, and indeed what's happening in Westminster, which will affect MPs as well as candidates, will become the go-to place for democracies, including in Australia. And obviously in Australia, you already have a measure being proposed by Zali Steggall, which would restrict false advertising during election periods. But we think advertising is just a tip of the iceberg. It's what comes out of the mouths of politicians and candidates that we really need to make sure is honest.
Yes, and of course, one of the criticisms of this Welsh legislation is that it might stifle free speech. Do you believe that to be the case?
I love that argument. We've got to be free to lie. It's not an argument that's run in a sales room. I've got to be free to lie about the cars that I'm selling, or I've got to be free to lie about the medical procedures that I'm functioning in, yet politicians seem to think that they should be free to tell lies. We're not talking about stifling debate. We're not talking about stifling opinion. Those are all really important parts of the political landscape. What we are talking about is the deliberate, factual misrepresentation of the truth, deliberately and knowingly done, because that pollutes the whole political landscape.
Yes, and one of the things that's being debated, which you believe is the argument about the definition of the terms false or misleading. I find it fascinating that there even needs to be a definition, because there is a dictionary, is there not?
Absolutely. And also there isn't just a dictionary, there's the whole of common law and there's legislation. Judges on a daily basis make decisions based on what's factually accurate, what isn't, what's dishonest and what isn't. But again, those who are worried that it will restrict their activities are mounting these campaigns arguing that it's going to affect freedom of speech. Sorry, you may be able to hear my dog scratching in the background. So politicians are mounting this argument that it's going to restrict freedom of speech. But what it's really going to do is restrict freedom to lie.
Okay, Jennifer, Nadel, we'll keep a really close watch on what happens in Wales, but it's been awesome to have this very honest conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.